Bryce James has been called overrated for years. Fans have accused him of using his last name to get to Arizona, and sitting out his entire freshman season only made things worse. But Bryce is finally playing against real competition, and what he's showing is changing the conversation. Let me catch you up before Bryce James ever put on an Arizona jersey. The conversation about him had already turned negative. It started at Peach Jam, the Nike EYBL tournament that's basically a showcase for every serious college prospect in the country. Analyst Jeff Goodman posted Bryce's numbers from that event, and the reaction online was immediate. College hoops analyst Jeff Goodman posted his underwhelming stats from Nike's Peach Jam, one of the most prestigious high school tournaments around, and James's numbers led to many fans commenting that he was getting an opportunity due to his last name. One fan online put it bluntly, writing another James kid that should have gone the mid-major route, while another asked people to name another kid with those stats being recruited by any D1 school. A third fan wonder where he'd play if his name was Bryce Johnson, and a fourth added if these kids weren't LeBron's kids, they would be unknowns. Facts. That's four separate strangers on the internet independently landing on the same conclusion, that the name was doing more work than the game. And the numbers backing up their skepticism weren't hidden. They were sitting right there in the box scores. According to Max Preps, James was averaging 6.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.0 assists per game off the bench in the 4 games he played that senior season. 4 games, not 4 months. 4 games because he'd missed the first 9 games of the season due to an undisclosed injury. Here's where the title's premise really starts to earn itself. This isn't a kid whose production simply didn't match the hype. It's a kid whose recruiting profile was genuinely modest on paper, then got amplified into a national story purely because of who his father is. James plays for Sierra Canyon in California and has long been on the national radar as a high major prospect, but the rankings tell a very different story than high major usually implies. The Sierra Canyon senior was regarded as a 3-star prospect according to 247 Sports, and was ranked as the number 257 prospect in his class, listed as a 6'4" shooting guard. Some services were slightly kinder. James was ranked as a 4-star prospect and number 100 overall on 1-on-3 list of the top high school class of 2025 men's basketball prospects. But that was the outlier, not the consensus. Elsewhere, James was listed as a 4-star prospect on ESPN and a 3-star prospect on Rivals and the 247 Sports composite list, with Rivals notably placing him at number 150 overall. Depending on which service you trusted, Bryce James was somewhere between a fringe top 100 player and a player barely inside the top 300 in the country. That's a massive gap, and it's exactly the kind of gap that invites people to ask whether the ranking system was accounting for his game or his last name. Compare that to what his older brother did in the same building. Bronny was a 5-star recruit and averaged 14 points per game his senior season, numbers that made him a legitimate national name independent of who his father was. Bryce never got close to that kind of production. Bryce needs to be given time and space to run his own race, and he may not be the dynamic athlete or playmaker some expect at first, but he is a fundamentally sound player with solid perimeter size. And a good early skill set is how 247 Sports scout Adam Finkelstein described him. Back when James was still just a recruit, a scouting report that reads far more like developmental project than future star. And yet somehow, none of that mattered to his market value. This is where the story stops being a normal recruiting tale and turns into something almost unheard of in sports. James ranked number 204 in the country in On3's rankings and didn't have flashy numbers. And according to Max Preps, he was averaging 6.3 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.0 assists per game off the bench in the handful of games he'd played that season. However, despite his lower ranking and underwhelming numbers, Bryce still ranked as having one of the top NIL valuations in all of college athletics, according to On3. Let that sink in for a second. A kid ranked outside the top 200 nationally, coming off the bench, averaging 6 points a game, carrying one of the biggest name-image-likeness price tags in the sport. Bryce James's NIL value placed him as the 5th highest in high school basketball, at $1.3 million, and James was the only player in On3's high school basketball rankings to rank within the top 100 of NIL valuations without being a top 50 recruit. The explanation isn't complicated. It's perhaps because of his famous last name and massive social media following. Bryce James has 3.4 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, and X, a number higher than some of the top NIL earners. As On3 founder Shannon Terry has broken it down, an athlete's value is primarily based on their exposure and social media following, not necessarily their stat line. So before he ever set foot on a college court, the entire conversation around Bryce James had already split into two lanes that didn't match: a business valuation that treated him like a star, and a basketball resume that read like a bench piece on a stacked prep team. That mismatch is the engine driving every single "how bad is he" conversation that came after, and it only got louder once he actually arrived in Tucson. So Bryce commits. Bryce James, the younger son of NBA star LeBron James and brother of Bronny James, announced on Instagram that he committed to play basketball at Arizona as part of the 2025 class. His father reacted the way you'd expect. "Congratulations, Maximus," LeBron James posted, "So proud of you." A few months later, it became official. "What's going on, Wildcat Nation? Can't wait to get there and start working," Bryce said in a video released by the school. But committing to Arizona wasn't just choosing a school. It was choosing to walk into one of the most talent-stacked rosters in the entire country. At the exact moment that roster was getting even deeper, the Wildcats landed 5-star recruits Braden Burries and Koa Pete and signed 5 more players: Dwayne Aristote, C.D. Gueye, Ivan Karchenkov, Mobile Mawoot, and James. The Wildcats also returned key players from the previous year's team, like Jaden Bradley, Anthony Del Orso, Toba Waka, and Motijas Krivas, and the amount of talent returning combined with the blue-chip recruits entering the program created an uphill climb for James to log significant minutes as a freshman. Notice the gap in star power there. 2 5-stars walked in the same year Bryce did, at the same position group, on a team that was already loaded. This wasn't a rebuilding program handing him keys to prove himself. It was a machine that had zero patience to wait on a 3-star project. The season started, and Bryce simply wasn't in it. Arizona guard Bryce James had yet to play in the team's first 3 games of the 2025-26 season, including an 84-49 win over Northern Arizona. And while it's common for players not in the regular rotation to play in non-conference games, in garbage time, James had yet to make an appearance, creating speculation on when or if he would play that season. Head coach Tommy Lloyd was blunt about what that absence actually meant. After the game, Lloyd said that redshirting James and his teammate Mobile Mawoot was on the table, adding no final decisions have been made. He then laid out exactly why burning even a few minutes mattered so much. "It's tough," Lloyd said. "It puts you in a tough situation. You play Bryce in a game like this for 3 minutes. It burns a year of eligibility. I wish it was easier." He even compared it to how football handles the same problem. "I wish there was a set number of games. You could play a guy like they have in football. I think that would make sense for some of these kids, but we don't." There's a reason Lloyd could afford to be this patient with Bryce specifically. Arizona had been utilizing an 8-man rotation during the first 3 games, and it worked. The Wildcats recorded an upset win over reigning national champion Florida during the opening night of the season, in large part because of the play of Koa Pete, who finished with 30 points against a stout opposing front court. When your rotation is already producing wins like that, there's no incentive to rush a freshman with a modest recruiting profile into minutes. So the decision got made, after not appearing in any games, to start the 2025-26 season. James chose to redshirt his freshman year. On the official roster page, the entry for that season reads about as sparsely as it gets: 2025-26. Freshman did not appear in any regular season games. The only line of action came before the season even started. Prior to Arizona, he scored 2 points and added 3 rebounds in 14 minutes of action in an exhibition game against Embry-Riddle. But before the red shirt became official, Bryce did get a small window to show something: Arizona's Red-Blue Intra-Squad Showcase. In early October, the kind of preseason event built to generate buzz, Bryce James made an exhibition start ahead of his freshman college season, with Arizona in the Red-Blue Showcase, starting alongside Koa Pete, Motijas Krivas, Anthony Del Orso, and Jaden Bradley for Team Blue. The final line: James finished the exhibition game with 3 points on 1 for 3 shooting from the field, making 1 of 2 3-point attempts and taking no shots from the foul line. He added 1 assist, 1 block, and 1 steal while committing no turnovers. In 18 minutes on the court, 18 minutes, 3 points. Not a disaster. Not a breakout either. Just a quiet, mixed line in a game that meant nothing competitively. Played in front of a crowd that included Shaquille O'Neal and Rob Gronkowski. As fans online noted at the time, the appeal of watching him wasn't really about the stat sheet. It was about the name on the jersey. That dynamic showed up again 2 weeks later, in a real exhibition against St. Mary's. James made an appearance for the Wildcats as they faced St. Mary's in an exhibition game, but he didn't get a chance to put up big numbers. He played just 1 minute and scored 1 point on a free throw late in the game. 1 minute, and yet the building didn't treat it like a footnote. While his time on the court was limited, fans were ecstatic to see the son of one of the best players of all time on their squad. That's the whole tension of the Bryce James story in one sentence. A player getting a standing ovation for 1 free throw in 60 seconds of floor time. Because the crowd isn't just watching a guard, it's watching a name. As one Bleacher Report piece framed it plainly, it's hard to say whether he'll be a regular contributor for the Wildcats, considering he barely saw any action, but he'll look to make the most of whatever reps he gets. The red shirt call that followed wasn't punishment, it was survival math. On a roster that simply didn't need him yet, but it also meant an entire season would pass with almost no real evidence of what Bryce James could actually do against high major competition. While Bryce sat out the season, Arizona went on the kind of run that program hadn't seen in a generation, and he had to watch almost all of it in a redshirt jersey. Arizona had been among the best teams in the nation, finishing the regular season and Big 12 tournament with a 32-2 record and earning a #1 seed entering the NCAA tournament. As the #1 seed in the West region, the Wildcats tried to snap an over 2-decade streak without a title, in what was viewed as the program's best shot in the Tommy Lloyd era. With a real chance at a Final Four fight to the finish, they didn't just make a run, they made history. Arizona's 2026-27 roster only returned 6 players from the team that ended a 25-year Final Four drought, and only 2 of those had actually played in that run. That's the headline sitting quietly underneath Bryce's red shirt. His own team reached a Final Four for the first time in a quarter century, and he wasn't a competitive part of it. He was, by his own coach's account, still developing behind the scenes. He was expected to begin playing in the 2026-27 season, once he officially entered the rotation. And for now, he continued to develop behind the scenes, remaining actively involved with the team throughout the season, practicing, developing, and supporting from the sidelines. There was one moment where he did get to physically share in it. After the game, he joined his teammates on the court and helped cut down the nets as a regional champion. And the official March Madness account shared the clip on Instagram, with thousands of fans reacting to the moment. Cutting down nets is real. It's also, by definition, not playing. It was right around this same postseason stretch that the loudest and least accurate chapter of the "How Bad Is He" story went viral. A post started circulating that read like a legitimate news alert. Breaking. Arizona G. Bryce James will forego the NCAA tournament to prepare for the 2026 NBA draft, the post read. The freshman guard averages 0.0 PPG and is currently mocked to the Los Angeles Lakers in the second round. The dig wasn't subtle. The last part was a shot at Bronny James, who was drafted by the Lakers in the second round of the 2024 NBA draft. It spread fast because it was engineered to spread fast. It used a real, verifiable stat, 0.0 points per game, because he genuinely hadn't played, and welded it to a fake premise about draft declarations. Outlets had to step in and clarify the actual situation. While he did forego the tournament by virtue of being redshirted, his draft decision hadn't been made public, and James was eligible to enter the league, but it wasn't in his best interest. The 0.0 scoring average was real. Everything built around it was invented. But that's exactly the kind of gray area that keeps a "how bad is he" narrative alive. A stat line so empty that even a made-up story could pass as believable. While all that noise was happening online, the actual unglamorous mechanics of Bryce's development kept moving forward, mostly out of the spotlight. And the financial engine underneath him kept humming too. The reports on his NIL positioning from earlier in the year had already noted his valuation was expected to shoot up once he stepped on the floor to make an impact, and that although Arizona head coach Tommy Lloyd had announced James would redshirt his freshman season, the decision was made to allow James more time to develop and be ready to be a part of one of the best teams in the country. Even sitting out the machine around him kept treating him as a name worth investing in. Even though he wasn't seeing game time, he remained one of the biggest names on the market, and his popularity translated well into his NIL income. That gap, a stat sheet that says almost nothing, next to a business valuation that says everything, is the exact contradiction fans keep circling back to. It's why so much of the conversation about Bryce James isn't really about basketball skill at all. It's about trying to figure out where the actual player ends and the marketing figure begins. And heading into his second year, with eligibility restored and a real roster spot to compete for, that question was finally about to get tested on a real court, against real competition on the other side of the world. If Bryce James's freshman season was defined by absence, the summer before his sophomore year was built specifically to end that absence. Arizona planned an international trip unlike anything the program had done in years. The Arizona men's basketball team, coming off a 36-3 record and the program's first appearance in the Final Four in 25 years, went international with a historic visit to Lithuania in August. The USA College Lithuania Tour, organized by Complete Sports Management, saw the Wildcats in Lithuania from August 14 to 23, where they played 3 exhibition games against the national teams from Lithuania and Ukraine. This wasn't a glorified scrimmage against a mid-major. The schedule included the Lithuania B team in Jonava, Ukraine's senior national team in Kėdainiai, and Lithuania's senior national team in Alytus, with that final matchup marking the first time the Lithuanian men's senior national team had ever competed against a college team. Both Lithuania and Ukraine were also using the games as preparation for qualifying toward the 2027 FIBA Basketball World Cup in Qatar. In other words, these weren't ceremonial exhibitions. Lithuania treats basketball like a national identity. Most of the people in Lithuania say that basketball is like second religion to Lithuania, especially when the national team plays. Arizona big man Motiejas Krivas said before the trip. Coach Lloyd echoed that. I think people from here would be shocked to know how many people in Lithuania know what the University of Arizona is, and how good University Arizona basketball is, he said. This was the setting where Bryce James finally got extended, meaningful run against grown men on a professional track roster. The opener came against the Lithuania B team, and for once, he wasn't a token appearance. The first game of the international exhibition tour for Tommy Lloyd's team featured Bryce James coming off the bench. The Wildcats reserve got significant playing time. The line itself, the son of NBA superstar LeBron James, had 2 points, a rebound, an assist, and 2 steals in 15 minutes on the floor. 2 points on 15 minutes isn't a star performance by any measure, but look at what's actually in that stat line beyond the scoring column. A rebound, an assist, and 2 steals. That's activity. That's a player doing things that don't always show up as points but do show up on film. Getting into passing lanes, boxing out, moving the ball. It's a far cry from a total non-factor, and it's also nowhere close to the kind of breakout that would silence years of skepticism in one outing. It's worth remembering the broader context of why this trip mattered so much for the program, not just for Bryce individually. Arizona had 10 newcomers that season, a mix of domestic and international freshmen and Division I transfers, all of whom had to assimilate to the Wildcat culture, and that's where the visit to Lithuania came in. Lloyd was explicit that the scoreboard wasn't the point of the trip. I think the #1 goal is to kickstart your culture and spend time together, and kind of our journey starts now, Lloyd said. Every team has its own journey, and making sure that's clear. Last year has nothing to do with this year. That framing matters for how you read Bryce's performance. He wasn't dropped into Lithuania to prove he belonged on a Final Four roster overnight. He was dropped in to get real reps, against real competition, on a trip explicitly built around chemistry and development rather than results. 15 minutes and a modest stat line, in that context, reads less like a verdict and more like a data point. The very first real one available after an entire season of nothing, and the trip kept going. The very next night, Arizona turned around to face Ukraine's senior national team, another game built for exactly this kind of live, high-level testing ground before the games against Lithuania's actual senior national team, the one that had never before faced a college program in its history. That's the level of competition Bryce was now being measured against, night after night. Thousands of miles from the low-stakes, high-hype preseason showcases back home. No more garbage time cameos, no more red shirt paperwork, just live basketball box scores, and a slowly growing body of evidence to actually judge him by. Strip away the noise, the fake viral posts, and the reflexive comparisons to his father and brother. And what's left is a much narrower, much more specific question. Is Bryce James a legitimate high-major basketball player, or is he a marketing figure wearing a jersey? The honest answer sits somewhere in the middle, and the evidence for that is right there in the timeline. On the recruiting trail, he was never close to a blue-chip prospect. He was regarded as a 3-star prospect according to 247 Sports and ranked as the number 257 prospect in his class, a number that on its own wouldn't have generated a single national headline if his last name were anything else. That's not a hot take. It's the exact sentiment fans themselves kept repeating in real time when his Peach Jam numbers surfaced. But not a blue-chip recruit is a different statement than bad player. The scouting reports that actually broke down his mechanics were consistently more measured than the social media pile-on. He may not be the dynamic athlete or playmaker some expect at first, but he's a fundamentally sound player, with solid perimeter size and a good early skill set, possessing clear shooting potential with naturally soft touch, a compact release, and the ability to make both threes and pull-ups with a left hand that's advanced for his age. That's a real scouting profile. Limited athletic upside, but a legitimate shooting foundation. It's the profile of a role player, not a bust, and definitely not a 5-star talent either. The redshirt year complicates the picture further, because it means there's almost no in-season college data to actually grade. There are no statistics available for this player from his freshman season, officially, because he didn't play a single competitive minute. Everything we have to go on comes from exhibitions, the Red-Blue Showcase, the St. Mary's game, the Embry-Riddle tune-up, and now the Lithuania trip. None of those samples are large enough to declare him a bust or a diamond in the rough. They're just glimpses. A quiet 18 minutes here, a single free throw there, 2 points and a couple of steals against a Lithuanian B team on the other side of the world. What's not up for debate is the financial reality that's existed alongside all of it. Whatever you think of his on-court production, the market decided a long time ago that Bryce James was worth investing in regardless. His NIL value placed him as the 5th highest in high school basketball at $1.3 million. Built almost entirely on 3.4 million followers across Instagram, TikTok, and X, rather than a scoring title or an all-state trophy. That's not a knock on him personally. It's simply a fact about how modern sports economics work when your last name is James. But it does explain why the perception gap around him is so wide. People see a $1.3 million valuation and a famous surname, and they expect a 5-star talent. What they've gotten instead so far is a developmental 3-star guard who redshirted his freshman year and is only now in Lithuania, starting to build an actual body of game film. The comparison to his brother is unavoidable, and it's also instructive rather than damning. Bronny was a 5-star recruit who averaged 14 points per game his senior season, before going one and done at USC and getting drafted. Bryce never had that kind of production, and he's taking a slower, quieter route. Multiple years at Arizona, a red shirt, and now a chance to actually earn minutes as a sophomore inside one of the deepest rotations in the country. That path only makes sense if the coaching staff genuinely believes there's a real player in there worth waiting on. Tommy Lloyd doesn't burn eligibility on players he has no intention of developing, and his own words about wanting to protect Bryce's redshirt year suggest the staff saw exactly that kind of long-term project worth protecting. So, is Bryce James actually bad? The recruiting rankings say he was never elite. The high school numbers say he was, at best, a role player on a stacked prep team. The redshirt year says Arizona's coaching staff didn't think he was ready to help a Final Four roster as a true freshman. But the scouting reports, the shooting mechanics, and the flashes in Lithuania, a rebound, an assist, 2 steals in limited minutes against a senior national team, say there's a legitimately serviceable college guard in there, still being built in real time. He's not the second coming of his father. Nobody with a 3-star ranking was ever going to be. But he's also not the punchline the internet turned him into during the fake draft declaration post or the pile-on after Peach Jam. What Bryce James actually is right now, heading into his first real season of college minutes, is unfinished. The verdict on how bad he is isn't written yet. It's sitting in whatever happens once the Lithuania exhibitions end, the Big 12 schedule starts, and Tommy Lloyd finally has to decide how many real minutes a 3-star shooting guard with a 9-figure name gets on a team built to win a national championship.